military, fighting, MMA, and jiu-jitsu, and family, and how do they all come together? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Inside the Fight. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Your family story is just really amazing, and so I'm going to have you talk about your time in the service here in just a minute, but Jamie and I, we really want to hear about the amazing family environment that you've created at Evol Octopus.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, a big thing is going in from the military, where it's just like this really brotherhood community aspect, and then leaving that into the civilian world. It really creates this kind of I don't know, there's like a hole. You have these people that you're so close to, and then you share this extreme experiences with, and then it's hard to relate to a lot of other people, and we miss that aspect. At the same time, I really truly feel that like we live in America, in this amazing country, but one of the great things about living in great times is that you're not really challenged the same way other generations have been. And I think in that challenging yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, that's where you really grow as a person. And I'm a lifetime learner. And at our academy, like a lot of the problems that I see are because people don't have that resiliency. They haven't been able to challenge themselves and better themselves and temper themselves. And I don't wish them to go through a lot of hardship. So what we do here is we kind of manufacture some of that hardship, some of that stress, challenging people mentally, emotionally, and physically, in that community setting where we're really going after it, and we're really making things difficult. We're growing and we're learning, but we're doing it together in that kind of community, and from all walks of life. And you see that a lot of the problems that we see on social media, that we see other places, they don't exist in this little community of mine that we've kind of built around, because of the way that we interact with each other, and the way that we work through that struggle, and the way that we have built each other up and continue to grow.
Wow, that's just amazing to see what you guys are communicating. Now, can you tell me about your military career, just to real briefly kind of sum that up, but something that really caught me was you were wanting to go the MMA route, but there was a strong reason on why you couldn't do MMA and transitioned into jiu-jitsu.
I mean, I loved fighting. Like, if you meet me as a regular person, you wouldn't think that like violence is a huge part of my life. Like, if there's one thing that I have like a PhD essentially in, it's violence from a young man on, like whether it's the military, the fighting aspect within the military with combatives and everything, gunfighting, MMA. Like, I've always just fell in love with it, because I think that the mastery of violence is really where you become very peaceful. If you don't know how to fight, how to defend yourself, how to work through that, like choosing nonviolence, it's not a choice. It's, you don't have an option. And so when you really understand that, like, man, it's just always been an attractive thing for me. So I started as an engineer. I did combat engineering, which deals with like explosive breaching, and because of the threat in Afghanistan, we primarily did route clearance and stuff. But from the beginning, because I've always been in martial arts, I started into what we call the combatives program, which is the hand-to-hand fighting system in the Army. I fell in love with that, became an instructor, went everywhere. I did everything I could to convince my command staff I went to Israel for a while. I did all sorts of different things, learning different art forms of combatives, of martial arts. I loved it, was obsessed with MMA, thought I wanted to be a mixed martial arts fighter. But the reality of it is that with all that fighting, there's a lot of trauma, and head injuries became a real thing for me. I got blown up overseas, dealing with explosive concussion forces, and just having a hobby where you're always getting punched and beaten. It's not good. And traumatic brain injury is a real thing. And for a long period of my life, I kind of ignored it and denied it. Yeah. And I had to come to some hard realities when I started experiencing some side effects from traumatic brain injury. I've had 9 severe concussions in my lifetime, which is way too many. And so finally, I had kind of a come to reality moment when I realized I just wasn't the same person, and I was really worried that it was going to get worse.
Right.
And so I started just focusing on the grappling aspect of jiu-jitsu, where, even against a striking opponent, you can really protect yourself, and you use technique and leverage, and it's still one of the greatest aspects and a huge part of mixed martial arts. But I could do it every day, and I continue to compete, and still kind of scratch that itch and be a part of that without taking the trauma to my head. And so that really kind of what led me down that route. And I honestly, I just kind of fell in love with it more, and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, that's
I love
amazing.
that. It's like the train smarter or not harder.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Good for you.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about your own injuries and challenges, not even just within jiu-jitsu, but like you said, you were blown up and had, a ton of concussions. And what was it like to be on a downward spiral for those?
It's horrible. Like when your life is identified as your ability to function and just be active, and man, it's like a machismo environment. I think now we're getting better at acknowledging our own limitations, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and seeking help, and looking at those things to better ourselves. But at the time, it was like you hide injuries, you work through it, like you were seen differently. And like I started having, like, first was back problems on top of the TBI. I was always dealing with, but man, back problems. I used to make fun of people that would complain about their back until one day, like overseas, I like sat up and I couldn't move, and I was having our medics put, cortisone shots in my back and doing everything I could to eating ibuprofen like it was like candy. I used to have a gallon-sized bag of 800 milligram ibuprofens. And,
Oh, goodness.
I mean, just doing doing all sorts of things
Right.
that to function, you know what I mean, and just mentally toughening it out. And it was not the right answer.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of education, because there's a stigma associated with like asking for help, or
Right.
acknowledging there's a problem. And so no one really had that knowledge in that community at the time, about what to do with TBI, what to do with these injuries. It was just tough it out. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
absolutely.
that. So, yeah, I mean, like I went into a state, there was a period too where, I got really depressed. I mean, some of it was just coming back from deployment. I just kind of had this spiral, and that's part of what martial arts kind of gave me something to work towards.
Right.
And it was literally my lifeline. It was what helped me with my mental health issues. Everyone around me was committing suicide, or dealing with extreme PTSD.
Right.
And I did not want to be that person. So the outlet for me was fighting, was martial arts. And there's nothing work if that is your outlet, your saving grace, and then you're unable to do that. It's really scary.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and let's be honest, as every year you get older, it gets harder to do. When you're 25 years old, you're kind of like Superman.
Yeah.
But those injuries compound, and if you don't address them and learn how to better yourself, it
Right.
becomes a huge issue. And so, man, it was, and that's like, fast forward, that's really where an infinite cell therapy like became a huge saving grace for me.
Yeah.
And
So how did your life shift after you met New Hope Regeneration and receiving therapy from them?
well, I was really hoping that it would help me with, I had a really pretty catastrophic knee injury. I got hurt and then like still competed, and then I made it worse, and I tore my LCL, PCL, my meniscus. I mean, it was like multiple knee injuries at one
Right.
time. I had to get some surgery. It was rehabbing. I just didn't have any strength. It was hard. And coming off of it, like I found you guys and I was like, man, this is, if anything, the risk is so low, like I'm going to try it out. And I was hoping that it would help with that. What I didn't realize is that my back, which was just a chronic problem for me that I just thought I would live with for the rest of my life. Because I was told at one point, I got blown up through the air and I landed on my tailbone. And they were saying that I would have to eventually get fused discs, that I wasn't supposed to deadlift ever again.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of things in the health community where I feel that that's just bad information.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I'm the ability to push myself. I'll do anything you tell me to do, you know what I
Right.
mean? But don't tell me I can't do something. And so I would sit in a car before my back, like we would drive to competitions, and I would have to get out every 30 to 45 minutes to stretch out, or my back would literally lock up.
Right.
I didn't sleep more than 3 or 4 hours, because if I lay there more than that time, like it would legitimately like be worse. I would spend hours trying to I had to take hot showers and stretch and do all this stuff just to function.
Right.
And it was such a normal aspect of my life that I just it was like brushing your teeth.
Right.
And the craziest thing is, like, about a month in to my therapy, after taking it, I remember driving down to Portland, which is like a 3.5, 4 hour drive from where we were at. And I remember like a couple hours in, like normally I'd have to stay and ask my wife to stop and everything. I'm like, my back feels fine. And to this day, like I don't have problems driving and everything else. And I did nothing else different other than my therapy.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is, among multiple things, but probably the most improved quality of life. And so much of what, I do, it's a little different than what you do, but a big thing that when I stress fitness and wellness is that it's about your play span. We talk about like lifespan. We talk about these other terms, you know what I mean? Like living longer, but like living longer doesn't do you any good if you can't do the things you love with the people that you love.
Right.
And to me, that's what play span is. Like to do those activities, like increase your play span. And I think like infinity cell therapy, like that thing increases your play span. There's no doubt. And the quality in which you can do it. And so I'm very grateful.
Awesome. So in like 30 seconds, why would you encourage someone to contact New Hope Regeneration and come get therapy?
The bottom line is that the risk is absolutely minimal. What you get for it is a drastically improved quality of life. You can do the things that you love with the people that you love for a longer period of time. And that is invaluable. We throw money at so many things that don't bear us any fruit.
Right.
And I can tell you from personal experience, like this thing will change your life.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was beautifully said.
So you heard it here from Professor Alex, blown up, beat up, everything in between. They talked no hope diagnosis over him, and now he's training at a level that he didn't think he would be able to continue to train at. Professor Alex, thank you so much for being on with us today. We're just grateful for you and what you're creating in the community and what you and your wife are doing, and you're just a gift beyond measure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and I hope that more people see this and get some therapy.
Jamie, we have a few seconds left. What do you think about Professor Alex's story?
What I loved most was how you spoke about just your quality of life and how much that has improved, and just doing your day-to-day activities and then realizing that like, oh, this doesn't hurt anymore. And then you just, it almost feels like it's endless.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jamie. Thank you so much. Go to InsideTheFight.net to learn more. Join us next time on Inside the Fight.